Hi, everybody. My name is Diane Kaler. I'm the director of Nutrition Therapy Institute, and we're here for our first installment of NTI Pod Talk. This is our interview platform where we're going to be interviewing instructors, students, staff, faculty, and because we want you all to get a sense of who we are at the NTI office and know what we're doing here and why we are so passionate about what we do. So our first interview today is with Dr. Becky Spakey, and I want to welcome Becky, and we'll go through some questions, and as part of our questions, she'll be telling us a little bit of her background and some of her favorite foods and that kind of stuff. So welcome so much, Becky. And if you could just start off, if you could just start off by, well, first of all, I want to thank you very much for being an instructor at NTI. You bring such a valuable body of knowledge and such excitement to your teaching that we all love it. So we take pride in the caliber of the professionals we have working here, and you are definitely one of those. So can you talk a little bit about your background and your education and what makes you interested in nutrition?
So it really starts from when I was a very, very small child. My mom was a nurse, and she would oftentimes take all of us children to the hospital or nursing homes, depending on where she was working, to visit with patients who maybe didn't have families that would come to see them. And so as a child, and when I would see the foods that were brought in, I don't know how innately I knew as a kiddo that diet soda and sugar-free Jell-O wasn't anything that would provide nutrition to people that are sick. And it just always flabbergasted me. So my whole life, I knew I'd want to do something in nutrition. What I thought once I got out of high school is that I would go to college and get a degree in nutrition. But back long ago, there wasn't a proper nutrition degree. You could become a registered dietitian. And I know that the education there has shifted some, but back in the 70s, if you were to get a degree in as a registered dietitian, it was calories in, calories out. That was pretty much the conversation. And I knew that there was more to it than that. And so it took a long time. I ended up not going to college to get that kind of degree. I ended up getting a degree in education, thinking I was going to be a special ed teacher. Got married, had my kids. Then that's when I went back to school. And I went back to school became a chiropractor to start, because I thought, well, out of all of the professions, they're the only ones that are talking to people about food-based nutrition and what that meant. And so I was super excited about that. So in my practice, it was a nutrition-based practice. Then the medical community shifted, thank goodness. And there are some, as you well know, there's something that's called now the Institute for Functional Medicine. And also Harvard Medical School has something that's called lifestyle medicine. And so if you're an MD or a DO or a DC, you can then enroll in their Institute for Functional Medicine and or lifestyle medicine programs. So that's what I did. I went back to school and I got certified in functional medicine and clinical nutrition so I could have that as a focus of my practice. So, because that's what I always knew, no matter what kind of doctor anybody would be, again, whether an MD, a DO, or a DC, if patients just come to see you to say, fix me, I'm broke, but you don't give them strategies to heal themselves or at least maintain the healing process that took place, then it's just going to be a vicious cycle. And that was my goal. What tools can I give you so that you can stay healthy outside of my office, not just be healthy inside of my office? So that's how it started.
Wow. That's a great story. I love that. And especially that you went back to school after your kids were grown, because we have a lot of students who do that. And I think sometimes they feel uncomfortable, or they feel like they're going to be overwhelmed that they're going back to school later in life. And so that you did that and were so successful, that's great. So what drew you to NTI to want to be an instructor here?
So my very first experience about learning anything about NTI was I was grocery shopping at a natural grocer's in Aurora in my neighborhood. And there was an employee there. Her name is Daniel Cisak. I don't know if you know who Daniel Cisak is or not. But anyway, she was a nutrition educator for Natural Grocers, and I was just picking up some vitamins off of the shelf. And I overheard her speaking to another customer who had a question about some totally unrelated topic. It was health related though. And so after that customer left, I went over and I introduced myself and I said, wow, you really know a lot about what you're talking about. And she said, I went to NTI. And of course, back in the day, she had her MNT certification. And so I thought, holy cow. Again, in my mind, I think about back in the 70s when nutrition was, again, RD based, which was just calories in, calories out. So to hear this employee at Natural Grocers talking about biochemistry and why we care about the supplements we take, why we would choose them, what the food does. I mean, she was trying to sell more than anything healthy foods, but saying if you're not going to eat these foods, then this supplement might be a good fit. But she blew my mind with the knowledge that she had. So that was my very first experience with NTI, was hearing somebody with their master's certification blowing my socks off. Knowing what I know in functional medicine, I would have certainly thought she was definitely a doctor, a biochemist, at a doctorate level based on what she said. So I was amazed.
Wow. That's nice praise for NTI graduates.
And everyone that I've met since then has lived up to those same high standards. It's beyond amazing.
That's great. So what's your favorite thing about being an instructor here?
I love passing the torch. Now that I have reached an age where I don't need to be the young one in the trenches trying to save the world and cure everybody. If I can empower 15, 20 students in a classroom at a time, and then they can go out and they can empower 15 or 20 patients a week, that umbrella gets bigger and bigger rather than me one-on-one trying to change the world. I just feel like it's awesome that, number one, that there's a school that cares about the science behind nutrition, to just hone in on the science, so that when they're speaking to people, their clients that they're working with know that they know they're getting some good information. And so I just feel like it's my time as a wise sage, to pass the torch to the youngins to carry on the work.
Yeah, well, and you're doing a fabulous job at that, by the way. So do you have a favorite nutrient or supplement?
When you ask me that, it makes me think about, do I have a favorite child? I love all of my kids, but if I have to hone it in, I'm going to say yes, 3. Magnesium, D3, and B12, because every single human on the face of the earth has a receptor site in every single cell of their body for mag and D3. And so it's so super easy to be deficient in those 2 particular nutrients. And especially when we think about D3, I'll just go out in the sun. Well, even if we're in a warm climate, which in Colorado, we are not warm 6 months out of the year, but even if it were warm, as you know, the way the earth rotates around the sun, even if temperature was elevated, the angle of the sun wouldn't be such that we could absorb adequate amounts. So I think it's critically important that everybody gets D. They should be tested, and it's super easy to test to know where their numbers are. That way they know how to dose effectively based on their needs. And again, the same with magnesium. Virtually every American is deficient, and every patient I ever worked with in private practice was deficient. So I think those 2 are important for the general population. And because, as you know, in my private practice part of my life, my work is with people at risk of developing Alzheimer's. And B12 is such a key player for cognitive health and function. So B12 for cognitive health. So that's why that makes my top 3.
Good, good. How about a favorite food that you incorporate daily?
Brussels sprouts. I love Brussels sprouts. I know it's one of those foods that so many people dislike, but
Yeah.
I love them. And now that we have this wonderful technology where you can do an air fryer, I can just, toss it in a little bit of olive oil and put the seasonings that I like, throw it in the air fryer in like 5 minutes. They're super crispy on the outside with those outer leaves, crunchy in your mouth. Anyway, Brussels sprouts are one of my very, very, very favorite foods to eat on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to take your lead and do that. So last night, my husband was being very nice and generous and trying to have dinner ready before I got home from work. And he tried doing a zucchini in the air fryer.
Uh-huh.
Well, zucchini is just pure water, right? So he
Right.
put it in the air fryer. It didn't work so well. So next time I think we'll do Brussels sprouts.
Russell, you will love them, and you will try.
Yeah.
Yes, you will love them. I
Yeah.
promise.
Okay. All right, good. How about, do you have a daily routine for meal planning and meals? Like, when do you eat? Do you have a specific routine for when you eat?
So, yes, and mostly yes. So, yes, we have a routine. And I am, especially when I was in private practice, when people would say things like, it is too expensive to eat organic. I can't, that's only the affluent people that can buy organic food.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
what
yeah.
I started doing is I started saving my grocery store receipts. And now, with the onslaught of social media, many times people go to my Facebook page. If they scroll long enough, they're going to see several posts with me with my grocery store receipt posted. Because what I love to do is I will, like Natural Grocers, every month at the beginning of the month, they'll have a flyer of all the foods that are going to be sale price for that month. So I go
Right.
through and see what is sale price. And then from there, I create a menu, and 7-day menu. My husband and I give ourselves a treat of eating out one time per week. Other than that, I'm making all of the meals. And so I go through, based on what's on sale, is how I will create my menu. And I will say, okay, this, and I just write everything down on a Saturday, go buy all of this stuff, and then food prep on Sunday. And I know that so many people are going to say, it takes too much time. I don't have time for that. But if we don't take 2 or 3 hours out of the day on a Sunday, or Sunday for me, anybody can pick whatever day they want.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
don't take the time, then they're going to make poor choices during the week because they don't have a plan in place. But if you already know every day of the week, and it's on my refrigerator, it says Monday, but I mean, we know every single meal we are going to eat all week long. It's already been prepped. So all we've got to do is either pull it out and warm it up, or pull it out and cook it, depending on the length of time it takes to actually cook. So that's absolutely what I do. And again, by shopping the sales, the truth is Jay and I, and most people can't believe it, that's why I show receipts. We can eat for somewhere between $50 and $85 a week, organic meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And so for breakfast, we do protein shakes because that's just super quick and easy. So we just get a whey protein powder. People can use whatever they want. I throw in a handful of frozen blueberries, a half of a frozen banana, a handful of nuts or seeds that have been properly prepared. Throw that in there, turn it on, takes 12 seconds, and there's your breakfast. Lunch most of the time is just leftovers from the dinner before, because I just prepare. But again, if you think, let's even go high end and say it's $85 for the week for 2 people to eat organic food. Do the math. You can't go to McDonald's and eat for that price.
Yeah.
So it's worth
Yeah.
taking the time to food prep and shop sales. And if you shop sales, you can eat organic for less than eating at McDonald's. That I can prove every day of the week.
Wow.
And we're
Well,
omnivores. We eat everything. It's not like, oh, she's just eating beans and rice. No,
right.
we're omnivores.
That's great. So I really appreciate you saying that. And those are great tips, because I think that a lot of people say, you know, prep your meals on one day per week and then you can eat for the whole week and shop sales. But but they don't actually follow through and do that. So to hear that you're actually doing that, I think that's really great. It gives people some incentive and some motivation to do it themselves, and also might point people to your Facebook page so they can see some of your receipts.
Yeah, receive the receipts and see, oh my gosh, yeah, she's got the whole complex of foods. Holy cow, $72 that week. Wow. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great. So what are some of your favorite resources for nutrition information, like journals or magazines? What kind of people do you follow? Podcasts, websites, that kind of stuff?
Well, right now, one of my favorites, and I don't know if you've listened to her, is Rhonda Patrick. Dr. Rhonda Patrick. I don't know if you know any of her work. So she
No.
has her PhD in biochemistry, and she just geeks out on nutrition. If you haven't heard her yet, you would absolutely love her because
Yeah.
she speaks our language. Is what
Right.
is the science behind the foods that you should eat? Why would you make the choices to eat more of this and less of that? So yeah, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, she's a rock star. Dr. Dale Bredesen, I follow his work because he is the first medical doctor who published the book, and his book was called The End of Alzheimer's. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I ever shared with you in the past that my mother died of Alzheimer's disease, and my
Yeah.
father has Alzheimer's disease. So if you
Yeah.
don't think I care about my cognition,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
my forefront. And so, and when he published his book, my mother had already passed, so I could not take that information to help her. But we know that the traditional model says there is no hope for Alzheimer's. You can't stop it, you can't slow it down. So when we know that we know for a fact, yes, we can. So again, Dr. Dale Bredesen's got great resources. So since that's my love and passion, I follow his stuff too. And Weston A. Price, anything Weston A. Price, you know, I'm all about foods that just, they nourish the physical body, but they nourish our, I mean, they just feel good to eat those foods. So
Mm-hmm.
those would be the 3 resources that I go to day in and day out.
Great. Thank you. What's one of the most important things you think students should know about being a future nutritionist?
That the time could not possibly be better today than any other day in the history of nutrition. And I mean that sincerely, especially when I went back to school and got certified in functional medicine through IFM. Again, now there's all these, again, whether they're an MD, a DO, or a DC, but a lot of MDs are there, and they're excited about making positive changes in their patients' lives, but then they realize this is time intensive. And though I have the knowledge up here of why I want to help somebody get off of meds and use nutrition to heal, they don't have the time. And so more and more doctors' offices are hiring people that have nutrition backgrounds to implement the knowledge that the docs have.
Yeah.
So we're seeing this. I mean, if any student would go to the IFM board, you know, if they went to ifm.org, they're going to see in the help wanted section, lots and lots of doctors are saying, I need nutritionist in my office. I have the knowledge of why it's important. I don't have the time to do it. Would you please do that part for me? So the time is, and people are willing to be more proactive with their health. It used to be back in the 50s, back in the 60s, into the early 70s. If a doctor in a white coat said it, it was the gospel. Right. You never questioned it. But now more and more people are saying, not really sure that's the path I want to take. And so if they can talk with people that can stand strong behind why they're making the recommendations. So yeah, there's never ever been a better time for people that are looking at a holistic approach to nutrition, without a doubt.
Great, good. What about advice for students who feel overwhelmed about what they're learning, about the workload? You know, they're just overwhelmed. What about any advice for them?
You smile and you say, welcome to the club. And I just gently remind them, and I did this in the classroom yesterday, because sometimes they do feel overwhelmed. And we just have to remind them that every single one of us that are talking to the students, every one of us that are instructing the students, we were exactly where they were at some point. We did not just come out of the womb with a doctorate in nutrition or a master's in nutrition or what. We didn't, right? We had to go to school. We had to be there day one ourselves. And so I just let them know that yes, right now it feels overwhelming and it feels like you're drinking out of a fire hydrant. All this information is coming in and you're trying to grab it. That's okay. All those little morsels are being implanted in different parts of the brain, and in time all of the pieces of the puzzle will come together, even if it's later. I shared with the students, especially when I was taking biochem in grad school, I really thought at biochem that time, it's like, okay, I can't do this. There is no way my brain is smart enough. And, you know, I was having one of those little temper tantrums. Why do we even I don't even understand why I care about this. And then of course, when you get into practice and then you realize at the time when you learn a Krebs cycle, it's like, but then that's complicated, but when you can break it down into why different things are going, I'm dropping something here, but I'm adding something there. Once it sits in you, you realize the importance. And again, I was out of school 10 years, and I sent a letter to my biochem instructor because he was still at the college. And I said, I didn't understand it very much then. 10 years later, I couldn't live without it. I use this every day. So it's a delayed thank you, but thank you for, forcing me to struggle through this. So I just tell the students, yes, you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're not going to understand all of the pieces initially, but in time you absolutely will. And if you quit now, you're never going to get to where you want to be. So just buck it up, muddle through, and you will be so grateful at the end.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I mean, I wish there was a better answer, but
yeah,
right. We all feel overwhelmed day one, every one of us.
Yeah, well, that's great advice. So for those people who are feeling overwhelmed and feeling very stressed, what's your best advice for self-care?
I can share what I do, but again, just because it works well for me doesn't mean it works well for others. And that's the other thing I tell every student when in the classroom is find whatever it is for you that brings you peace and calm. Before I had my accident in June, running was my thing. Holy cow, put on my running shoes and I could just clear all the cobwebs. So for me, that was magical. Running for now I can't do, but I can at least walk. And so I just get out and, being in nature and just breathing. And again, everybody is different. For me, it's not putting in earbuds if I'm outside walking, but being out there and hearing all of the sounds of nature rather than hearing stuff that's just pounded in there. For me, that works well. Also, I love those adult coloring books. I've got a whole variety of fun little markers and pencils, and I just sit. So if I get stressed, it's just, color some groovy pictures. So yeah, that for me, that's what seems to work well.
Yeah, I love those too. I don't know that I ever would have admitted that before, but so I'm joining the club with you. I love them too.
Yep. So for me, those are the things that work, but right, everybody has to find something, whatever that is, they have to find it so that they can decompress, because nothing else is going to work in their body correctly until they can.
Yeah. Well, fabulous advice. So Becky, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for your wise words of wisdom. And it just reminds me why we're so happy to have you here at NTI. You have such energy and such important information to bring to our students, and we are really happy that you are here. So
not happier than me to be there, and that's the honest truth. I love being there, passing the torch. It's a wonderful thing to do. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, I will let you go. So everybody watching this, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you again in the next edition of NTI Pod Talk.